as I said, it'll just be of me. Here we are. So welcome everybody. Welcome to folks who watch later as well. And here we are. We're on our ongoing journey into the very wide-ranging world of Tai Chi and Qigong. Over the past sort of 10 weeks or so, we've built up a series of movements called Shibashi. Little change this week, and again, it might be familiar for some people. We're going to go through the 8 strands of brocade Qigong set. Again, it's another lovely set of movements that lends itself very nicely for people who might be seated using wheelchairs and for people who may wish to stand. So I'm going to do my usual combination of seated and standing variations. I'm going to push my chair back and start seated. You need to have a bit of arm space. So if you're in a space where you can't extend your arms out to the sides, see if you can kind of just adjust yourself in your space. If you're going to be standing up, again, make sure you've got a little bit of room around you so that, again, you can get your arms wide. Again, we're talking to a very diverse group of people when we talk to people living with limb loss, upper limb and lower limb. And I'm really sorry, I can't speak to each and every individual person's needs. So I will use cues like hands and feet, even though like me and maybe like you may well be missing limbs as well. They're just convenient cues. So please forgive me for doing that, but it seems one of the simplest ways in some respects of cueing these movements. First movement then, 2 hands hold the sky, and it looks a little bit like this. We're going to start off with the hands, if we're standing or seated, just kind of like cupping a large ball, and then we're bringing them up, turning them over slowly, and then we're going to slowly press up and look up. And then we just let the hands fall apart slowly. This is a quality called sung. So sung means to let go. And in many respects, we're letting go physically as well as emotionally and psychologically. As we start that movement again, turning the palms over, pressing up, hold the sky momentarily, and then just let the hands fall away. It's as if they're in free fall in slow motion. Once again, pick the hands up in that start position. And then we turn them over, press up, pressing the sky, hold it for a moment, and then just let the hands fall away. Sung. You guys get in position. I'm going to transfer to standing, as I said I would do. And same again, hands come around, turn over, press up, and then let the hands fall away. I'm just going to turn in different orientations, hopefully to give you a better view. Here we go again. Turning, pressing, hold for a moment, and then let the hands fall away, just like so. There's our first movement. Lovely opening movement. Nice one to do on a morning. Second movement, called Archer releases the arrow. If we're standing up, we want a bit of a wider stance. If you're sat down, I want you to have this sense that you are poised and balanced in your seat. I know that might feel like a bit of a strange cue, but I want you to have this sense of growth coming up from your seat or up from your feet. We're going to cross our hands in front of the chest. I've got my left hand on the outside if you want to match me. I'm taking a thick bowstring with that left hand. I'm looking to the right and I'm going to draw an imaginary bow and arrow. I'm going to release the arrow and I'm going to let that left arm extend out so I'm balanced. And then, just like we did before, the hands fall away. We pick them up again. This time the right hand on the outside takes an imaginary bowstring and we draw our bow slowly, steadily, looking into the distance, and I release the arrow Watch it fly as I extend the right arm, and then once again, let the hands fall away. If you wish, you can start to take a big breath in as we draw our bow. And at the very limit of your breath in, as you breathe out, you let the arrow go on the breath. So the breath acts as the release for the arrow. And then the same, this time right hand drawing the bow, gazing into the distance, breathing in if you wish, breathing out as I release that imaginary arrow. Okay, if I was to be sat down, same thing. I'm thinking up through my posture, through my torso, not in a stiff way, in a way that feels balanced and elegant and poised. I've got my left hand on the outside and I draw my bow. Same thing, I can use my breath to release the arrow if you wish. And then I bring the right hand around to draw the bow. I can breathe in as I reach the extent of the draw and then let my breath go, and at the same time release the imaginary arrow, just like so. So, archer releases the arrow. That was the second movement. Third movement, called parting the earth from the sky. Once again, I will start seated, but I will transition to standing at some point. Hold a ball, okay? Beach ball, something like that, okay? Not too close to the body. If I turn, you can see that my beach ball is away a little bit, and I'm bringing my bottom hand forward and up around the top, turning it over, and then I'm creating this S shape, pushing up and pushing down with my respective palms. And then I turn the palms, they come back together, hold the ball. We've swapped positions with the hands. And so once again, the bottom hand comes forward and up, pushing up and away, parting the earth from the sky. If I turn to the side, you'll get a better view of this bottom hand coming forward and tracing around that ball and then turning over, pressing up and pressing down. And then bringing the hands back together. Once again, bottom hand over the top. And then I push away and push down. Every time I do so, as I transition to standing up, I want you to have this sense of lengthening through the spine. So as I bring the bottom hand up, my hand will disappear overhead, but I'm having this sense of lengthening through the spine. And then there's a sense of just relaxation and letting go as I bring things back. Once again, bottom hand over, pressing up, pressing down. Sorry that my hands disappear. And then back again, parting the earth from the sky. Okay. Next movement. Fourth movement. Wise owl, it's called. Sometimes it's called wise owl gazes backwards, and that's exactly what we're going to do. This is where we need some of that arm space. So I hope you've got some space to turn, not only in your seat or standing up, but you've also got some space for your hands and arms as well. We're going to turn to our right. We're going to look over our right shoulder and lift our palms very gently. And then I'm just going to let the hands fall away. There's that sung element. And then I'm going to turn to the left. And once again, I'm just going to lift the palms. And then let the hands go. Sung. That's the movement. Whether we're seated or standing, we're turning the head, turning the shoulders, lifting the palms, gazing into the distance momentarily, and then coming back where we started. It's not a stretch, it's just a turn and a look. And an opening of the hands and arms, and the chest opens as well. Let's go once more to the right. And then once more to the left. Wonderful. Wise owl. If I was to do this sat down again, just to demonstrate, you can follow along. Same thing. I could start with my hands on my knees, turning, coming back. Or if you've got space, you might not have armrests on your particular seat, maybe. You can start with the hands hanging loosely and turning as well. At all times, I want you to think about the movement fitting you rather than you fitting the movement. Sometimes in different kinds of physical activities, you're required to fit the movement, and that can be really difficult sometimes. Certainly from our perspective, we want to give you permission to let the movement fit you and suit you and your particular circumstances and how you feel day to day as well. So there's a lot of latitude here for you to work in a way that makes you feel comfortable. Okay, so that was our fourth movement. Movement number 5. The next couple of movements involve a bit more movement of the torso. So we need to be a little bit more mindful of this, especially if we're seated or standing and our balance is a little bit precarious. Let me demonstrate. The first movement is called sway the head, and that's what we do. We're going to imagine that there's a rope in front of us going across. It's a bit like a barrier where you might find a rope barrier and you duck under that rope. So I'm just turning to the right, and then I'm just going to have a little duck under that rope and pop up on the left side until I come upright. That's the movement. And then if I've gone from right to left, we're going to go back again. Makes sense? So I'm going to duck under the rope, just like so. So one of the great things that we can do when we're sat down is use hands or arms for support on the tops of the legs so that I can lean into the arms a little bit. They give my torso some support as I go through that motion of ducking under a rope or a barrier. And then once again, I'm coming back again, retracing my steps like so. The same applies if we stand up. So for people who are standing up, once again, moving position, I might have a wider stance and I can place my hands on the tops of the thighs or on my hips again, how it suits you. And again, I can use my hands for a bit of support as I duck down. The movement becomes a little bit bigger and larger as we stand up. Quite a big movement of a torso. So it's worth moving very slowly as we do so. Taking your time, breathing very naturally as we go. It's a nice movement if you've been in one position for a long time. I'm going to go once more from right to left. Have to be mindful that it can be quite a balance challenge. So again, work within a range that suits you. Here we go again from left to right, so that I come back upright once more. There you go. So sway the head. The next movement that again involves a bit of a challenge. It's another movement where we're hinging at the hips. Again, we can do this seated or standing. I will start standing and transition to seated. We're going to pick up a ball, an imaginary ball, and lift it overhead, or it could be a box if you wish. And my hands now come on top of that ball or box and I push it down. There's a bit of gentle resistance there. And then my hands, I'm going to turn around so you can see. Now, it all depends on you in terms of your seat or your flexibility. Some of you may be able to get the hands in the small of the back, onto the backs of the thighs or the pelvis, or even lower down, right at the top of the thighs. It's up to you. But then once hands are in position, or hands on the sides of the thighs if sat down, with just hinging forward, sliding the hands down, maybe just to the knees, and then coming round the fronts and then coming back up like so. I'll do that one more time standing and then I'll do it seated. So we pick up an imaginary ball or box overhead. This gives us some important extension through the back and chest. And then as we bring that ball down, pushing it down, we sweep the hands around. They come into place either backs of the thighs, sides of the hips if you wish, and then I'm hinging forward. And I'm not looking for a stretch, I'm just looking to move, oh so comfortably, and back up again. I'm going to sit down now and show you that movement seated. Same thing, picking up that ball overhead, bringing it down. So if you have armrests, you may have to squeeze the hands in on the sides. If, like me, you don't have armrests, sides of the thighs, and then I'm just sliding my hands down. I'm looking down towards the feet. I let the hands travel as far as they can go comfortably, and then they come back up like so. Try have another go, picking up that ball overhead. Bringing the hands down slowly. As you notice, everything is done slowly, with awareness, with a kind of sense of mindfulness, if you wish. Down we go. And range of motion, hopefully, is improving each time, just a little bit, without us even trying to find a stretch. So unlike yoga or Pilates and other movement modalities, we're not seeking a stretch. We're seeking to move within a comfortable range of motion and explore what happens within that range of motion. That's why we're called Discover Tai Chi. Let's do this one more time. Again, can be a very useful movement if we've been in one position for a long time, just to kind of give us a movement break. Here we go. I'm just looking down naturally, letting my hands find the level at which they want to travel, and then slowly returning back up. All the while, there's a sense of being aware of what's going on for me. That's a question that you can have in your mind's eye as you're moving in a Tai Chi or Qi Gong way. What's going on physically? What's going on emotionally? And what's going on around me? What's the environment in which I find myself? Sometimes we're in busy environments, sometimes we're in quiet spaces, and conversely, sometimes we've got a very quiet and settled mind and kind of headspace, and sometimes we've got an incredibly busy, distracted headspace. So again, we've got all of those variations with which we can examine what's going on in a very nice way. Okay, so that was 2 big movements, done and dusted. Let's do another movement. So next movement is called bounce for heels. We're going to lift, if we're seated, a foot, or it could be a thigh. Again, you may not be wearing a prosthetic limb. You may be in a wheelchair, and it might be that you're just lifting a thigh or something like so. But that's what we're going to do. So if we're standing up, we're shifting our weight forwards. Again, I'll stand up in a moment and show you what that looks like, but we're shifting our weight forwards and upwards so that we come to balance basically on the balls of our feet. And then we're going to let ourselves drop back down, flat-footed, hopefully, not losing our balance too much with a bit of a bump. It's called bouncing feet. But if I'm sat down, I can lift this side, my prosthetic side, from the seat, and I can lift the heel. Oh, let me push back so you can see this left foot. I can lift the heel, lift my leg, hold for a moment comfortably, and then just let them drop. That's the movement, but actually you're using your tummy muscles quite a bit when we do so. Lifting the heel, in this case for me, lifting the thigh, and then letting everything drop. Quite a tough exercise in many respects. If you're standing up, you're coming up onto the balls of the feet, and then dropping back down on your heels. It's called bounce for heels. Once again, lifting, rising, holding, and then dropping back down, just like so. Here we go again. Lifting, and then dropping. Let me stand up. Quite a tricky movement to do standing up without losing our balance. Again, follow along if you're seated. Let me get my feet a little bit in position. So I'm bringing my weight forwards. That begins to get the heels to lift. We only need to lift a little bit. We're not doing ballet here. We're not lifting very high, but I'm now balancing on the balls of my feet. And then I'm going to let my weight drop back. Whoop. If I need to take a little corrective step, that's okay. Let me move that box. So here we go again. Lifting. Heels rise. Could be just a centimeter or so. Hold for a moment and then drop back down. Okay. Simple movement, but actually a very important movement for our balance, for our ability to hold our balance as well, or stability in that case, and then our ability to control when we let that position change from having the heels raised to then coming back down to earth again. There's a lot going on there. So particularly for people with lower limb amputations, this is a tricky movement to coordinate. Whoop, there you go. I needed to adjust myself just to keep my balance. Let's go up one more time. Just like so. And then once again, dropping down like so. Wonderful. So I'm going to do one more movement. And we're just going to ring the changes just a little bit. A little reprise of a shibashi movement that we've been doing over the past 10 weeks, just as a little bit of revision. And that's making waves. I like this movement because it conveys so much in such a simple movement. Whether we're seated or standing, we have our hands in some water that we're able to make waves with. We could imagine that we're in the sea even, maybe not in this country, maybe somewhere warm, or we've got our hands submerged and we're going to push them forwards. And then we're going to pick them clear. Imagine the water dripping off your fingertips and then bring the hands back. And then once again, push and make a second wave. Lift the hands clear. Draw back, push again, and really imagine that there's some gentle resistance as you push the hands away. And then as you lift them clear, they settle back into the water and we push again. So there's an ebb and flow. And there's an opportunity to lean back a little as we go back with the hands, and there's an opportunity to lean forwards as we do so. So just keep going. And once again, I'm going to do my little transition to standing. So we can do this in a number of ways. Standing up, we can have our feet squarely on the floor and just push with a little bit of a lean and a little bit of a rock back, like so. And that's quite easy. We can also take a step forward. In this case, my right leg, my prosthetic side, and push forward into that leg. Again, depending on the prosthesis that you have and the level at which you wear that prosthesis will determine whether you can support yourself going forward onto that limb. And there's so many different permutations that, again, as I say, it's difficult to talk to each and every person in this respect. But I'm just going with the ebb and flow. It's got a nice feel to it. And of course, if you've had one leg forward, you can at some point swap, bring the other leg forward. This is my left leg, the intact leg. And strange as though it may seem, my balance is worse on this side than it was on the other. As I push forward, I have to be careful as I bring my weight back onto my prosthesis because I'm a bit wobbly. That's okay. It's giving me information. It's helping me understand myself in relation to this movement, into relation to this to and fro. Something that we have to do a lot of in day-to-day life. So again, it's an opportunity to understand how different movements impact my balance and my overall state of well-being as well. So that was making waves or pushing hands. Excuse me, I almost fell over then. So that brings us to the top of the hour. I hope that's been interesting. I hope it demonstrates how we can adapt movements from Tai Chi and Qigong, seated and standing. And I hope it conveys also this sense that it gives us an opportunity as a consequence of moving slowly to really pay attention and start to be inquisitive and curious about what's going on, basically. How do I feel today? What's going on in terms of my balance and stability? These are all good questions that then lend themselves to us seeking answers. Can I do something to help myself in a certain position, for instance? Something we'll continue to explore as we go on with our sessions. So a little bit of news. Next week, there's no session because I'm taking a mini little break to go to a seaside town, not in the UK, but over in Spain, Palma de Mallorca, for a little bit of sunshine for the weekend. It's been a long time since I've had a holiday, so I apologize in advance. No session next week for those people watching later. I'll pop this on the WhatsApp group as well, but for people who do watch the recording, you get the message this way as well. So I'm going to stop the recording. If people want to hang around and ask any questions, please do so. I'm here to answer those questions. You can unmute yourselves. I will unpin